it is just as likely that your child will grow up and have one school suspension as that they will grow up having been investigated by CPS.
Child Protective Services.
Child Protective Services.
Child Protective Services.
The supervisor of the Department of Child and Family Services called us and said that if we don't get back in touch with him in 30 minutes, he's going to issue an order to take custody of our children nationwide.
A recent study from the NIH showed that 1 out of every 3 children in America will be part of a CPS investigation before the age of 18. Worse, if you're Black or Native American, it's 1 out of every 2. This is the Lott family. They travel around the country as a family and they document their travels to over 500,000 followers on social media.
Their baby, Boone, was investigated by Florida CPS, I kid you not, to appease an angry group of Redditors.
But before we get to that, you need to understand who the family is first. JD and Britney Lott are ex-military vets with a mission. When they left the military, they realized that they wanted something more for their children. They decided to homeschool so that they could give their kids not only a good education, but more importantly, so that they could experience what it means to live. They traveled all over the country as a family. Early on, they started documenting their adventures, and after a while, things started to really take off. Fast forward to today, and they've amassed over 500,000 followers on Instagram.
It kind of blows my mind that we have this many followers watching our travels.
Unfortunately, there will always be malicious people. It wasn't long before the Lotts began to get some negative feedback. That was really disappointing, but not unexpected. Anyone in the public eye is going to have people who disagree or even hate them. It's expected, but it's still going to be tough. Nobody wants to wake up from a bunch of comments from people who seem consumed with letting them know that they hate them. It makes you kind of question, am I doing the right thing? Is what they're saying true? And then you have to remind yourself, these people have never met me or my kids. They have absolutely no context to make an assertion that's even close to the truth, but it's just the way it works. So they finally came to a decision. If having a few people hate them meant that they could give their children the best possible upbringing, then that was worth the sacrifice. But it never really occurred to them that that sacrifice might include somebody trying to take their children. Enter Fundy Stark Uncensored. It's a subreddit within which there's a dedicated group of individuals whose mission has been to harass the Lott family because they disagree with how they raise their children. When I say that, it sounds like I'm being a little bit dramatic, but honestly, there is no other way I can think of to explain what they did next. Having never met the family or even seen the children, this Reddit group decided to organize the filing of false CPS reports to attempt to remove the Lott children from their parents. They claimed that the 1-year-old son had a severe sunburn and jaundice and lethargy, and it worked scarily well.
So basically she calls and I was talking to her on the phone and she used the same exact term. She said severe sunburn, lethargy, and jaundice. We're worried about your children. We need to check on them. And I explained to her that we saw a comment like this days back, and the next thing you know, we talked about it and it seemed like it was okay. Come to find out though,
It wasn't okay.
the supervisor of the Department of Child and Family Services called us and said that if we don't get back in touch with him in 30 minutes, he's going to issue an order to take custody of our children nationwide. So we reach out to a group called Family Freedom Project.
When I first received the call from JD and Britney, I was confused. Not only is what happened to them immoral, it's a felony. Immediately, the entire team at Family Freedom Project began to work to find a local attorney who we trusted, who was able to clear their entire day to take on this emergency case to protect the Lott children against the CPS-imposed deadline that was just a few hours away. As you can imagine, we had to look fast and furiously. Meanwhile, the Lotts had to, well, they had one call left that they had to make.
Y'all, I had to call my mother to set up a backup plan in case the Florida Department of Child Protective Services took my kids from me.
As a parent myself, it is scary to the point of being incomprehensible to think I could do everything correctly and still have my children taken from me due to an angry group of Redditors.
Thankfully for the Lotts, there was some good news. After hours of searching, we found a local attorney who could help. With the local attorney on their side, JD called back the CPS supervisor to arrange a meeting.
And basically we contact the supervisor and we say, hey, we'd like to meet at a hospital that specializes in newborns so you can check them.
He's like, no, just pull over on the side of the road and we'll have a social worker come and decide if they're healthy or not.
A social worker? Really?
When they arrived at the hospital, they didn't know if they were about to lose their children or not. They handed their baby, Boone, over to the medical staff who were there with a police officer.
We're at the hospital. We have a police officer that came up to check out the kids. We have medical staff that are in there. This hospital is specifically for newborn children, so they can look at babies and see if they're okay.
The medical staff also met with and looked over all of the other children. Then came the verdict.
Obviously, we passed the test. Everybody's okay.
Based on the good report of health from the doctors and the police officer, Florida CPS agreed to close their case. But the question remains, how could a falsified report from anonymous Reddit users result in a family nearly losing their children within a matter of hours?
They're shocked.
The police officer and the staff was like shocked. Like, why is this happening to these people?
The problem is not just with CPS. It's with the fact that CPS can be easily weaponized by malicious people against innocent families. If you leave with nothing else, understand this. JD and Britney are the lucky ones. Their story is the success story. They had a team of people and a family who could organize a rapid cross-state response to defend them. But many families don't have that. Those are the families you don't hear about. They are the statistics. 1 out of every 3 U.S. children will be the subject of a CPS investigation before the age of 18. If you're black, it's 1 out of every 2 children.
Even if like the people are innocent, like the average time that you're away from your child is away from you,
14 months.
it's sickening.
I don't say this to create fear. I say this because, unfortunately, I have to. We live in a system where being investigated by CPS is now a normal childhood experience. It's 1 out of every 3 children. This is an absolutely massive scale. Thankfully, there are solutions. In Texas, we dramatically reduced CPS's surveillance of families. We cut the number of children being removed in CPS in half. We cut the number of children sitting in foster care by 40%, and we reduced child deaths from abuse and neglect at the same time. We're not done in Texas, but Texas is proof of concept for the idea that we can dramatically scale back CPS investigations of innocent families, and we can protect children from abuse and neglect at the same time. We have to change the system, and we have to do it together. If you've made it to this part of the video, then there are 2 things that I need you to do. Thankfully for you, they're free and they don't take much time. The first thing is to take this video and send it to your 3 closest friends. Nothing changes if nobody knows what is going on, so we need to spread the word. The second thing is to sign the petition calling for a criminal investigation against the individuals who filed the false CPS allegations against the Lott family. False CPS reports are a felony. This group still openly talks about calling CPS on the Lotts again. They also talk about calling CPS on other families that they harass online. However, it is rare that any accountability actually comes in these types of cases, unless we have enough people who raise the alarm to
help us make true change and help us prevent another family from being attacked. Please take 60 seconds, sign our petition.
The link in the description is below.